We'll call to order the Board of Zoning Appeals. Would you stand for the pledge of the flag? Jerry, would you lead us, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for a moment of silence. Thank you. Call roll, please.
Gary Farley, Veronica Buchanan. Here. Jerry Sartain.
Here.
Joe Machado. William Harper. Here. Renee Curtis. Here. Zane Cantrell.
Present.
We have a quorum.
You have the minutes that from the last meeting that were mailed out to you. Are there any corrections or changes in the minutes?
Move be approved, Mr.
Have a
Chairman.
motion to be approved.
I second it.
Have a second. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, like sign. They are approved. The first item of business is a request by Patricia Pugh for a special exemption for a dwelling unit. What do you have on that, please?
Thank you. Application 2018-35 involves the property at 725 Glenview Drive. It is a request for special exception approval for an accessory structure that does not meet the minimum requirements for ADUs. The property is located in the RM zoning district. Do I need to repeat that? Okay. We're dealing with 725 Twinview Drive. It's a request for special exception for an accessory dwelling that does not meet the minimum standards for accessory dwelling units. The property is located in the RM, medium density residential zoning district. The property measures less than an acre, and that automatically triggers the requirement for a special exception when someone is seeking to establish an accessory dwelling unit on the property. The applicant proposes to construct an accessory dwelling unit at the end of the existing driveway. There is a primary residence that exists on the home. The applicant proposes to build a garage with an apartment above on the second floor of this garage. The garage will be designed to match the exterior materials and elevations of the existing structure. We received one call in regards to this with questions as to what the request was for, and no one indicated opposition to the request. We posted a sign on the property. As you can see, this is the existing dwelling. And the applicant indicates in their application and their responses that they will meet all of the standards. The primary residence will be occupied by the owner. The second unit will be occupied by family or invited guests. One of our requirements is that the materials and exterior be designed to match the existing structure. These are the surrounding home sites. It's in the Valley View Estates subdivision, or Valley View. And this is the driveway, and the structure will be located in this yard. And as you can see, the applicant has drawn for us where the structure will be located. This is an elevation. However, the materials, the applicant says, will match the principal dwelling. And that concludes our presentation.
Do we have anyone here representing this request? If you'll come around, please. Yeah, up here. If you'll give us your name and any additional information you might want to share with the board.
My name is Catherine. I'm here to represent Patricia. She's actually in labor right now. So, but what they kind of gave me is they kind of want to build like a garage type of thing at the bottom, and then at the top have like the apartment type of thing. That's all I know.
Any questions? Looks like you've answered them all. Thank you. We'll open this for a public hearing for anyone who'd like to speak on this request. Close the public hearing. Is there any discussion? I'll entertain a motion on it.
I would like to make a motion, subject to all staff approval.
Okay, we have a motion to be approved. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Call the roll, please.
Veronica Buchanan.
Yes.
Jerry Sartain.
Yes.
William Harper. Renee Curtis. Zane Cantrell.
Yes. The next, it passed. The next item we have is a request by Michael Burt, who's requesting a special exemption establishing a rural retreat. What do you have on that, please?
Thank you. Application 2018-36 involves the property at 8990 Manchester Pike. It's a request for special exception approval for the establishment of a rural retreat upon the property located in the RM, Medium Density Residential, and EAC Employment Activity Center zoning districts. And the highlighted area indicates the entire parcel as it is now. We advertise by the parcel number, and therefore, even though this application only affects a portion of this property, the red outlined parcel is the entire tract as a whole. We're only speaking about the 23 acres that fronts Manchester Pike. And as you will see in the concept plan, they'll outline it a little better than this. Some of the existing, they are seeking approval for a rural retreat. They plan to hold less than 30 events per year. They had investigated whether or not a plan unit development, which would allow them to exceed that 30 events per year, was an option. However, they have chosen to go the special exception route. The applicant has indicated that they will meet all of our standards for rural retreats in regards to outdoor amplification of music. They will be required to go through site plan review if the board chooses to approve the special exception. Items such as parking, the location of all the structures, any proposed structures, access to the property will be further reviewed. They'll be required to submit a set of engineering plans that will be reviewed by staff as well as the Planning Commission. And that's before they can actually establish the use. Also, before they can establish the use of the rural retreat center or lodge, they'll be required to pull any required permits and have the appropriate inspections that will determine whether or not the existing structures are fit for the type of occupancy that the building will be used for. Right now, I believe it's just a single-family home. And so they plan to hold small, intimate seminars or overnight sessions, and I'm sure the applicant can get into more detail as to types of events that will be held here. But that's what just makes this particular request slightly different than some of the event barns that we have seen as of late. However, they still will have the option to hold weddings and family reunions and whatever events. The property would be made available for rent if the applicant chooses. The front portion of the property, you'll see in the concept plan, they've identified the existing structures. A couple of the structures do fall on the Employment Activity Center side that was rezoned a couple years ago. So that's why we advertise both zoning districts. It is not isolated to the residential medium portion of the property. So we posted a sign at the road at 8990 Manchester Pike, and these are just photos from that access off of Manchester Pike. We did not go up into the property and take photos, but sometimes the aerials can tell us a lot more than actually being on the ground and taking pictures. This is a floor plan of how the lodge will be used. And the building department will obviously, after, if they were to get approved, review in more detail the interior plans. The concept plan's very basic here. It's difficult to read too when it's on an existing aerial and copied, but a set of engineered plans will be required before they could actually pull any permits. And so they're showing the access off Manchester Pike, and this portion back here is the portion that's not affected, but you'll see highlighted on our parcel layer. And we have received a couple informational calls. No one has indicated opposition to the request, but there were some concerns about noise and access to the property. However, they were just informational and they had questions. No one indicated any opposition, and that concludes our presentation.
Does this meet our requirements at this time?
For all the requirements they can demonstrate at this stage, yes.
Okay. Do we have anyone here representing this request? If you'll come around, please. You'll give us your name and any additional information you want to share with the board.
Yes, my name is Brandberger. I'm here on representation of Michael Burt. Essentially everything Danielle said here is, right on the nose. I mean, if you look in the Rutherford County zoning map, we're in medium density residential. One of the definitions of medium density is this is a district that also includes community facilities, public utilities, and agricultural activities. And as she said, we're appealing to make this a retreat. If you go to 1408 of the Rutherford County zoning ordinance, section E, there's special conditions for minimal impact facilities, which is what we're applying for. Again, this is a retreat, and we've, as she said, we have met every one of those criteria. Again, the intended use is definitely going to be very much professional business, sort of gatherings for life coaching or business coaching. It could also be used eventually for small church retreats for, smaller, you can imagine smaller youth groups, or obviously it's not going to facilitate, big mega churches or anything. Corporate events, meetings, small parties, and some reunions. I mean, it's, and it's going to be used less than 30 times in the calendar year, as clearly required here. There's a plan if there's a plan to actually create a 50-foot utility right-of-way back to that. I think it's Miller Avenue or Miller Road back behind there, Miller Lane, for any sort of, I know there's sort of kind of concern over that Manchester Highway access, because that's the only access to the property right now, but in the plans there's going to be, again, a 50-foot utility roadway that will allow patrons to go and access that road instead of getting out onto Miller or Manchester Highway. So, again, I think that's pretty cut and dry. There's not any as far as noise concerns, again, this is going to be used for less than 20 to 30 people per event. So it's not going to be, live bands and Bonnaroo, essentially. It's not going to be that at all. It's just, mostly professional business use. So, are there any questions or concerns?
I do have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Utility access.
Yes, ma'am.
You're saying that you're going to let your patrons exit out the utility access? Is it?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, it's a.
Can you do that?
Yeah, it's a 50-foot. When I hear say utility, it's it can be used for utilities, but mainly it's the idea is to have a road. It's either going to be gravel or paved roadway, 50-foot wide. Well, not 50-foot wide, but the access, the property will be purchased on a 50-foot wide strip through there, and there will be a roadway that will safely take you out to that Miller Road behind. So there'll be two ways in and out, essentially. One onto Manchester Highway, which is what's current, and the other onto that proposed Miller.
So how many people can you anticipate at one time over there?
It's a 9,500 square foot home. It's going to be mostly used on the weekends as, again, a retreat lodge kind of deal. There's really probably, in most cases, not going to be more than 8 to 10 people out there. You know, Michael Burt is a coach, a life coach, and so those are the types of people he's going to be bringing. Yeah, those are the types of people he's going to be bringing out there. You know, getting to know and coaching through certain things, I guess. And but it's not limited to that either. It can be used for reception, reunions, small church retreats. Like, again, it wouldn't be for a large church. It couldn't handle that at all.
Will there be overnight stays?
Yes, sir. And I believe it won't be. I believe in the zoning ordinance here for a retreat, you can be up there for 7 nights, but it certainly more than likely won't be more than over a weekend.
I'm just trying to get a number.
Yeah, it's going to be less than 30. I mean, it's not going to be 100, 120. You know, you're not seeing it's going to be less than 30 at a time for sure. Yeah.
Any other questions? Renee, do you have any? Bill? Thank you. You may be seated. We'll open this for a public hearing for anyone who'd like to come to the podium. Come to the podium.
Brandon Berger? Yes, ma'am.
Hello, I'm Edwina Tapp. I live in that area there in Horseshoe Downs area. And so just my question would be about the number is important, and you're saying 30 people. But what about weddings? I'm thinking that possibly, normally a wedding would be more than 30.
We're not going to have this back and forth, okay?
Okay,
Just
well-
make your statement to the board, okay?
Oh, okay. I'm very
Go
sorry.
ahead.
I haven't done this before.
All right, go ahead.
All right.
We've got to have good order in this.
Apologize. All right.
It's all right. Go ahead with your statement.
I'm trying to think of, I think I have one other. That's all I have for right now.
Okay, thank you. Next. Anyone else? Could come up and give us your name and your statement.
Hi, I'm Mark Carrion with Truck Driver Institute. We have the Truck Driver Training Center that is across the street on Epps Mill Road, and our concern was in the ingress and egress onto Epps Mill. With our training trucks, back in 1975, we had a training location on Salem Highway, which we had to move after things like this started developing in the area. And so now here we are, 22 years again later, and we're concerned that we would have to move to allow our trucks to get in and out safely with our student drivers. And also would appreciate any input we could find out about if there would be a traffic signal at the end of Epps Mill and Manchester Pike, or if there is any plans on widening Epps Mill Road. That's it.
Wait just a minute, see if there are any questions. Okay. Next.
Hey guys, Greg Blankenship, Big Springs Road, 8870 Big Springs Road. I just had a few questions about, I don't really understand the special exceptions versus the regular zone meeting, how that, while we're here versus going through the regular channels. I'm new to this. He mentioned 20 to 30 people at one point, then 8 to 10 people. Never been to a wedding where there's 20 to 30 people. So I don't know how that's going to work out. At one point, they're asking for cabins, 10 cabins out there. That brings up concern of how you can control the music, the lights. Just doesn't, you know, we can't handle that kind of traffic out there. We're not ready for that kind of traffic. I know he's talking about having business retreats, but he's going to make money. This is a money-making operation, obviously, and so he's going to want to bring the the businesses or the opportunities that pay the money. And those are the weddings and the big venues with a lot of people. If he only wants to have 20, 30 people, could we have maybe a max number allowable out there? Or I don't know how it works. So just things that came off the top of my head when I was listening to his presentation. And he said something about Miller Road. Miller Road is,
Miller Lane is.
oh, is that the one right
Yes.
beside Barrett? Okay. I'm with you then. So Miller Lane Road is a pretty good way away. And I'd love to have traffic studied a little bit, definitely have 2 access points. You dump people off coming out of, are we going to use going to use the same entrance that's there now for the house to get in and out of the building? Does anyone know that?
The second access point was not shown in the concept plan. We just reviewed the concept plan as presented for the purposes of the application. However, they will have to go through, present detailed engineered drawings for the site plan stage if they were to get approval. And if engineering determines that the use will require a traffic study, will trigger, it's unlikely that this particular use would, then they would require a traffic study and then have recommendations as to what types of improvements would be required in that area to help alleviate the additional load. But it's unlikely that this particular use will trigger that, but that would be a factor that would be considered during site plan review.
Okay.
Anytime there is might say this to all of you, anytime there's a traffic problem, the Rutherford County Road Board is responsible for taking care of that. The Board of Zoning Appeal doesn't have any authority in making that decision.
Okay.
I don't know if that'll help.
Yeah, it does. I just, because the driveway now at that house is fairly close to the Epps Mill. And you start dumping traffic off trying to get onto Epps Mill, and like the gentleman said from the trucking company, it's already it's rough out there. I don't know how many people have been out there, but the truck stop right there, we constantly have trucks in and out all the time, and we don't have a way to, Manchester Highway is so crowded now, we have to go through that area, and there's always a wreck right there, and I'm just really fearful of introducing more traffic into the infrastructures there. I know you said you don't have...
You should live on Thompson Lane.
Pardon me?
You should live on Thompson Lane.
I feel your pain. How are we going to enforce these? Is that something
That's something that
somebody else would take care of?
Yeah.
Because we've got our beloved, mulch company out there, and they've just kind of taken over the back part of that EAC, and no one can enforce anything they're doing. And so I just want to make sure that if we... there's a mulch company in the very back. Yeah, I mean, they've taken over someone else's property out there, and they've grown. It's an eyesore. And I'm just worried about light pollution, traffic, safety, and that's all I have.
Thank you. We appreciate
So
your...
this, if you pass it here, it will go to what next?
Yeah.
Can y'all explain to him
Yeah.
about the special
Yeah, that's what I want to know.
Okay. The zoning process is when someone wants to change the zoning classification of a property. And in our rural retreat regulations, we have two types of processes associated with getting approval for a rural retreat. If you have less than 10 acres and you plan more than 30 events per year, you will need to rezone the property to plan unit development. And if you have a minimum of 10 acres and you're staying below 30 events per year, you can go to the Board of Zoning Appeals and ask for a special exception, which is a use that's identified as acceptable for that particular zoning district. However, additional consideration is required. And so that's why we're here tonight. It is an advertised public hearing. It's not the zoning process has 2 public hearings. It goes before the Planning Commission and County Commission. However, the special exception process is reviewed by the Board of Zoning Appeals, and that's the applicant, I think, was originally considering rezoning the property, but then decided at this stage of what they're proposing that the special exception was a better fit for them. It may be that in the future they may come back and ask for a rezoning, of the property if they plan to exceed 30 events per year or introduce new uses to the property. However, right now, they are just seeking special exception approval and work within what the zoning regulations allow for the RM district as well as the rural retreat regulations.
Okay, one last question, I won't take any more of your time. The 30 events max, is that just for the business retreats, period, or is that
No, 30 per year,
wedding,
period.
wedding, business,
Everything
everything?
deducts from that, I mean, any type of event that is made available for the public is deducted from that amount.
We're going to have to move on from here.
I got that. That's my last
Okay?
question. All right. I
Any
appreciate it.
questions from the board? Let me remind all of you, call up to the office and do your homework before you come here, and it'll be a lot easier. I say that just to be helpful to all of you, regardless of what comes before the BZA. Always call up here and get this information so you'll know exactly what you're talking about. Come on up. Be sure and sign the sign-in sheet because we want to make all of this a part of the record. Go
All
ahead.
right, yeah, Ricky Marlin, 7868 Blankenship Road, Christiana. So I think, and I'm going to ask for, I don't know if there's a 3-minute rule or not, but I'm going to go ahead and tell you I'm probably going to be over 3 minutes. I represent Buchanan Community Alliance, and we got about 89 folks in our organization, 89 households out in the Buchanan area. So I may go a little longer, I'm just going to go ahead and warn you, but I'll try not to be too boring about this. So August 27th, Monday night, August 27th, this applicant, Mr. Burt and the Benz property came and had to have an open meeting, right? They were wanting to do a rezoning, go through the rezoning process, not through the BZA. And so we came to New Vision, Buchanan campus, New Vision Church, and met with them, and we actually had to move it out into the main sanctuary because we had so many people there. I believe they didn't anticipate that many people coming that night, so we moved it out into the big area because we had probably about 40 people. I've got my notes from there. I counted them myself, and wanting to know about what was going on out in our community, right? What's the big deal here? Why they want to get rezoned? And so we gave them a lot. He gave a presentation. Mr. Coach, Mr. Burt, did a really good job. You know, that's what he does. He can woo and awe you with his presentation. And so he gave us a presentation. Really didn't tell us much more than what we probably heard at the beginning here. And so we came up with a lot of questions for him to address. And guess what? I am still waiting on that answer on those concerns. I had to contact them back and ask them to help us out on this. And they said, well, we're going to go through the BZA where we can hold up to 30 events and not have to go through rezoning. I was like, oh, okay. And we'll wish you luck on that, right? Because, you know, we want to be good stewards of our community. We want to help you out. We want to see a successful business out there, but we also want to be respected. We like to be known as helping people, but respect goes both ways. And if they would have come back to us and said, hey, you know what, this is what we're going to do. We're going to have this many people, this many nights. The lights are going to be here. The parking's going to be there. We got nothing back. Zilch. And if you look at your homework, your printout that was on the website, there's not much here at all. 10 out of the 14 specific standards for specific uses are not addressed at all in here. So I would be, as a board, I would ask y'all that doesn't respect this process. If they're not going to address these issues and tell us anything, then this ought to be denied and come back later after we get some information on this. And that's the respect that this county, this body, the citizens of our area deserve. And so I'm just going to go quickly through these. Expected number of events per year, no more than 30. Well, that's the most they can have in this special exception, right? So that's not really telling us nothing, up to 30, so we know it can be up to 30. Maximum number of attendees was not identified by the applicant. Didn't tell us, we don't know. Says the number of employees, no employees are expected. I guess these people are just going to be out there looking at themselves. I don't know if you're not going to have any employees there to do anything with them. How are you? I guess they're just going to sit in the house and look at each other. Hours of operation were not included. We don't know the hours of operation. Proposed lighting, security lighting was not addressed. We don't know about security lighting. Sound application, no mention of the type of amplification. Hard to talk. Temporary structures, does not address temporary structures. Signage details were not addressed in the application. Application does not address security. Application does not address trash receptacles. So 10 out of the 14 were not addressed. I just don't see how we can even really talk about this anymore until we know those details. And it would be, the nice thing to do is to delay this, defer it, until we know those ideas. We want to have something good on that property. We want Mrs. Benz and Mr. Burt to succeed. We really do. We want something nice out there. We want something with a good traffic light for the truck stop, the CDI. We want to have our area grow and grow right. We don't want to be like Thompson Lane, all right? We want it done right. I've asked the county to do not this particular board, but the actual planning commission to look at that area and do a gateway district out there. Let's be proud of our community. Let's bring in something nice. Let's bring in an Amazon that came to Nashville or something like that out there. You know, let's make it nice medical district or something like that out there. Sorry, let me just, I got a few more things. I think I'm about done. So just a couple other things. The buffer was addressed. It says that an existing buffer over 100 foot with existing trees and landscape. And most of the buffer in front of the house, of course, is gone so they can see the view. That's only natural. So there's really not that much of a buffer, not definitely with evergreens there. And if you look at the field where the driveway is, it's a soybean field, cornfield. So there is no buffer right there. So that definitely is something that's going to have to be addressed. The parking, I understand, will be around the back of the house by the map. And we would ask that if there's any more discussion on this, that the parking definitely not be out for a wedding coming in and out of Manchester Highway. That is a safety concern, Manchester Highway. I don't know how familiar you are with the hill that's right there. There was an accident and a fatality there a couple years ago. And so that hill has very limited light sight as you're coming in. There's an ambulance station down there by the convenience center.
You need to find a point to stop.
Okay. There's an ambulance center out there that'll be ambulance coming down that hill where they could get hit with a big wedding coming in and out. So we're worried about the safety aspects of that. Ingress and egress, we asked that there would be no ingress and egress to Manchester Highway, that they would use the back way if y'all decide to go further with this. So I'll ask before I leave, I guess, if there's any questions for me.
Any questions? Thank you. You've been very thorough.
So you haven't had another public meeting with these people, is that what you're saying?
Yes, we were very disappointed that they didn't. So at the meeting, I actually started a sign-in sheet and told everybody to put their emails down on it for them to get back with us, and that did not happen. They did not contact me back I pleaded several times, email, gave them my phone number to call me back, and let's talk about this. We want to do something good out there and understand what you want to do, but it cannot only be one-way communication. It has to be two-way communication. And that's the respect, and that's what we're asking for, is just some communication.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? If you'll come around, please.
My name is Shirley Ann Hayes, and I live at Horseshoe Downs, 112 Blue Ribbon Trail. So we have a lot to be considered in anything that occurs on the surrounding property to what has been termed the lodge. It is a beautiful, beautiful home, and has been very well maintained to the rural ambience that we would like to see continue there. Now, since I represent not only as an officer for the Buchanan Community Alliance, but also as president of the HOA for the Horseshoe Downs. And with the quality of life that we want to maintain, that's extremely important, and we certainly want to maintain the value of the properties. You don't invest that kind of money in a home in a rural area and expect it to become a Thompson Lane. So, and we certainly don't want to have the eyesore of another Waldron Road that is all different sizes and shapes and styles of commercial and manufacturers and that type of thing. I can see this both ways. I agree very much with our president, Ricky Marlin, regarding the benefit of us having another meeting before there is anything finalized here. Because there is a lot of controversy, such as the speaker before Ricky Marlin, there are people in this area who do not understand the process. Not the zoning process, not the intent. Some of them, I think, even have something like a moose lodge or some idea of some kind of a loud, noisy, boisterous facility there where you've got music going all night long and you've got these big pole lightings. Well, I have talked at length with Doug Debussy, and I have also spoken several times with Natalie Burt. Now, what I don't have from the Burts is something in writing, which I believe it is only fair for the Buchanan Community Alliance to have something prior to a decision being made that they have not only told us they intend to do, but they spell it out that they will follow through with this. And to keep it short, I have a lot of respect for Coach Burt. I knew him from the time he became a coach. I don't know him well personally. We don't socialize. We don't have that kind of relationship. He has worked very, very, very hard to become the kind of speaker and be able to do this type of facility that is very good for this community as a county and as our rural area. They are respectable people. They want to maintain the rural ambiance and the lifestyles, and they have respect for that. As far as staff, I know a lot of people who have home businesses and they don't have a staff. They have a lot of things that they do, accounting outside, second party, third party. But the type of executive...
Could you move up closer to the microphone?
Thank you. The type of executive leadership retreats the Burts have in mind is positive. It is not something that is going to downgrade our area or our quality of life. I have been told, and again, I would want this in writing from the Burts. They did tell me that they were going to speak with Brenda Bentz about getting access to an easement for the back, so they would have the parking in the back, they would have the entrance from the back, so when you've got more people, you'll have easier access. And they recognized they had not known about the fatalities. They did not recognize the hill or the blind road on Cobb Road. So they recognized that and respected that. Brenda Bentz also was very respectful in working with their needs, and I understand that that has now taken place.
You need to find a point to stop.
Yes. So I see that they are attempting to do things that they not only said they would do, but things that we address that we need them to do. But I do feel that we need to have this other meeting, that they need to give us in writing the particulars of what they're going to do. As far as how many people you can have at a wedding, you don't know that until somebody plans a wedding. I can tell you this, that's not their primary purpose. They are not interested in weddings. Weddings is something that is included when you have an event center. If someone chooses, just like if you have a church, that is not for the purpose of weddings. But a lot of people have weddings at churches.
Ma'am, you need to find a spot, okay?
So
You're
keeping
repeating
this-
yourself.
Keeping this in mind, looking at it from both sides. I do think another meeting would be in order, and something in writing that we can confirm. But I do feel that they have every intention of trying to meet our needs. We just need to see it.
Thank you very much. Next. Anyone else? I want to make sure we've heard from all of you. Thank you. We'll close the public hearing. Is there any discussion?
I'm a fan of public meetings to get on the same page with each other. At this point, I think they need to have another community meeting. That's my opinion, to get some of these questions answered that they have. So that's...
The requirements, they cannot start operating until the requirements are met, period. They will not allow that. So those statements of requirements here must be met before they start operating. Now, when they come before us, it is simply requesting, is this appropriate or not? And it meets our requirements here. So, I don't know what else you need to do. Now, if they don't meet it, the only way that the best protection that the neighborhood has is if they don't meet the requirements here, then all they've got to do is call up and say, this is not being met, and he would have to come back before this board for a possible reversal of whatever decision that we make. So, but we're open, the chair is open. I don't make the motions. I just try to explain.
I'm just trying to give the community something,
Yeah.
If they haven't gotten answers to their questions, I was just trying to give them something.
I understand that, but sometimes it doesn't help to kick the can down the road. So we need to either make a decision, tell these folks one way or the other. Is this appropriate for the operation out there or not, regardless of whether their questions are answered. Question we've got to ask ourselves, is this appropriate use or not? Does it meet the requirements or not? And this is what the legal definition of, I follow the law. Whatever the law takes me, that's what I follow. And I assume everybody else in this room would be agreeing with that. So at this point, I'll entertain a motion. Let's give these folks an answer.
Mr. Chairman, our staff reviewed the application and it met the requirements we have for what they're proposing. They still have to go through the site plan and all the other things.
That's exactly right.
We have a sign ordinance. We have all of the things that we're being asked. It meeting those requirements, I recommend approval.
At this point in time. So your motion is?
For approval.
Okay, we have a motion that be approved with the requirements, folks.
I just have a question. When do they have an opportunity to do another public hearing? I mean, since they've met what we have to meet, when will the neighbors have an opportunity to speak again on their concerns? Because it's met ours. When do they have another opportunity?
Are you seconding his motion?
I want that answer first.
Pardon?
I want that answer first. I mean, when do they have another opportunity after they meet this? Is it at the Planning Commission? Is there another public hearing for them then? I'm asking the question.
Site plan approval is not a public hearing. They'll have to demonstrate, but some of the criteria that it was stated that there was information. They said that they weren't proposing outdoor amplification. They weren't proposing outdoor security lighting. So they did answer. They didn't give us specific details on what kind of amplifier that they were going to use, but they did say that they weren't proposing. So there are enough answers in the responses to indicate that at this stage they can, and they can demonstrate it at this point that this is their plan for those types of details. But the site plan approval is truly a technical review, and some of the criteria that you find for rural retreat can't be demonstrated until that technical review or after the use is actually established and operating. We can't determine that there's a violation unless we go out there at 10 and someone calls and they're amplifying music past the allowed time. We can't, you know, they have said they're not going to have outdoor amplification, so we can't demonstrate everything at this stage. But the site plan review is not a public hearing; it's a public meeting. But this is the hearing at which the public can speak and ask questions.
I think that if it meets our requirements, and it has, then I have no other choice to second the motion. Did you hear me?
Whatever, in this case, whatever, it's got to be reviewed,
Right, it still has
okay?
to be reviewed.
And if it's not been done, then that ends it. That's it. Whatever you giveth, you can also take away with appropriate legal. So we have a motion. You have a motion, and who's second? You've seconded it. Okay, you sure? Okay. Yes, okay. You're asking, and you said the same thing, right? Okay. Any further discussions? Veronica?
So can the community call and talk to you guys, Danielle, and get information?
Absolutely. Everything that's submitted to our office is public record. You know, our agendas are posted
Sir,
online.
please sit down. The public hearing is over. I hate to be that way, but the public hearing is over, and you had your chance. Go ahead.
Yes, anyone can call our office anytime, and we're very helpful. I would like to think people think we are, but we would, you know, everything's public record. So when they submit that site plan, anyone can come in and look at the file and get copies if they want to pay for them. That information will be available. But it's upon the citizen to call us and find out that information. We won't send out notices.
Okay. Okay, I was just, like I said, I just want everybody to get along, you know.
I understand. Appreciate it. Just,
It meets the requirements, you know.
you know, that's a legal definition, okay? But if he does not meet those requirements, he cannot go any further. They will check that. That's, you know, that's mandatory. And if the community out there sees anything that's wrong and shows evidence of it, then it can also come back to us as well, as any item can. Okay? So they do have some protection, like you wouldn't have if there was a zoning change. So, yeah. Yes, easily. Okay, any other questions? I'm sorry, Bill, did you call the roll, please?
Monica Buchanan,
Yes.
Jerry Sartain,
Yes.
William Harper,
Yes.
Renee Curtis,
Yes.
Zane Cantrell.
Yes. That's all we have. Neighbors, thank you for being here. We appreciate your comments, and follow up on this with our staff. Please do that.